get it all set up. All right, we are ready to rock and roll. All right, so tonight during the MSBA application Q&A webinar, we are going to go through the admissions process and timeline. So what to expect with your application once you click submit. And then we will talk about the application components and what we are requiring with the application. And I'll share some tips and advice on how to best complete those components wherever necessary. And then we will talk about deadlines. I've got a deadline coming up here in about a month here. So giving you plenty of time to work on your application with all of my tips and advice. And of course, my main priority is to answer your questions. All right, so we are going to go ahead and move on. First things first, though, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to pop those in the Q&A function, okay? Let's not use the chat for questions, only because I want to make sure that I catch all of the questions. If we use that Q&A function, I can monitor every question and make sure I get everything answered, okay? So do me a favor and submit your questions there in the Q&A, and I'll be sure to answer them before we end the webinar tonight. If I see questions that are a little bit more personalized, it's very specific to your unique situation, I might answer that offline after the webinar, just because if it is very detailed in terms of your personal situation, that might be a better venue. So just know that, but I will get to every question. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So here is the admissions process in one slide. Now it takes a lot longer to go through this process, but for the sake of the webinar, we're going to breeze through this. So once you click submit and your application goes out there into cyberspace, what happens to it? So we get your application, we get your completed application. I see it first. I actually, once everything is complete with your application, I get to look at your application first. I also have a colleague who serves as my second reviewer for applications. So she and I review these applications simultaneously, but blindly. So what I review and what I comment on, she doesn't see, and I don't see her review. Okay, so we have two blind, unique reviews on your application. Your application then goes to the admissions committee. And my second reviewer and we present your application to the admissions committee. And the admissions committee then has a couple of options. They can either invite you to complete a virtual interview. If they want to know more information, they want to ask some questions. Sometimes it's just more luck of the draw, just sort of a randomized invitation for an interview. And other times there's maybe a reason for the interview, just to gain a little bit more depth of information. If there is no interview invitation, then that means the admissions committee has all the information they need, or just randomly your application was not picked for an interview and then a decision is made. If the interview, if you do get an interview, you'll do that interview and then you'll go back for one final admissions committee review and then the decision is made. Okay. So a little bit tricky there in terms of the interview, but I will say, so again, not everyone is invited to do an interview. We'll talk about this more on another slide. It's not bad if you aren't invited. It's not bad if you are invited. It's really just very randomized luck of the draw. Unfortunately, we don't have a bandwidth for everybody to get an interview because we have a lot of applications and just not enough hours in the day for our staff to interview everybody, but we certainly enjoy those interviews when you join us and when we're able to have that conversation. So again, more about that in a couple of slides, but that final decision, and we'll talk about this as well in another slide, but that final decision has a set scheduled date. So depending on the round that you apply in, your application round will have a specific decision release date then that you will receive that decision on. Okay, and that is all posted. It's posted on our website, so you'll be able to see that there. And I will have a slide that will show that later on. All right, so that hopefully takes the mystery out of what happens to your application once you click submit. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the application components, and we're just going to breeze, whoops, and there I just breeze right past it. How about that? We will breeze right through this list because I have a slide for every single item on this list here. So this is the full list of all of the items that we require as part of the application, okay? And again, I'm not going to go through each of these right now, just it's sort of a snapshot just so you know what to expect, but we will go through each one of these in the next slides. Okay, so first up is our statement of purpose. All right, so statement of purpose, quick and easy. It's 100 words or less, so it really amounts to about a paragraph, just a few sentences. Essentially, what you want to include in your statement of purpose is what are your short-term career goals and how does the Notre Dame MSBA fit into those career goals? How will it help you to achieve those goals? Okay. Short and sweet. You don't need to add anything more than that. And we are looking for 100 words or less on that. And I can't stress this enough as we go through each item of the application to stick to the guidelines for each requirement of the application. So if it says 100 words or less, make sure it's 100 words or less. If it's an essay and it says 500 words or 2 pages, stick to that. With the resume, if it's 1 page, stick to 1 page, because those items are noticed by the admissions committee. So I will repeat this with the following slides, but again, if it says 100 words or less, we'll keep it to 100 words or less. Okay, so short-term goals, how does the MSBA help you achieve those goals? Easy peasy with this item. The next item is your resume. So 1 page. So let's stick to 1 page on your resume. I know that many of you out there have extensive work experience and you're wondering, how do I fit everything into 1 page? Some of you might not have any work experience and you're thinking, how do I fill a whole page? And I will talk about that in a minute. But essentially, what we are looking for on your resume, if you are in sort of that second boat that I mentioned, you're a college senior, you're a university senior, you're finishing up your undergraduate degree, maybe you've had an internship or 2, and that's about it in terms of professional experience. How do you fill your resume? Okay. So what you can do, of course, we want you to include your internships, any type of professional experience you've had, even if it's a part-time job, include that. What you include on your resume does not need to be specific to analytics or to data in any way. I get that question a lot. Just any type of professional experience you have had, full-time, part-time, anything, you can add that to your resume. You can add clubs and organizations that you have joined, that you have been a member of, or you have had a leadership role in, any type of leadership position you have had. If you are a student athlete and you were the team captain, include that on your resume. That is a leadership role. That's a professional experience. If you have done community involvement, if you have been involved in an NGO or some sort of community organization, you've done community service, that absolutely can be included in your resume. This is Notre Dame. We are a faith-based institution. We are invested in serving the community and serving others. You've seen our Grow the Good in Business mission or tagline, and that really is what it boils down to, is serving others. So of course we want you to include service work in your resume if you have completed some. You're more than welcome to include any technical skills that you have gained along the way. If you have experience with coding or programming, if you have taken a certificate course in data analytics, if you have taken a certificate course in management, any type of course from Coursera, Udemy, edX, DataCamp, anything like that, you're welcome to add to your resume. If you're great at Excel, you can add that to your resume. So any type of technical skills. Any competitions you have completed, so case competitions, any research that you have done, all of that can be included in your resume as well. So there are a lot of great ways to fill a full page of a resume when you don't have a ton of professional experience. Now, if you're in the first group that I mentioned, you've got quite a bit of professional experience and you're wondering, how do I fit all of this into one page? Use bullet points, okay? And you'll want to use, share your specific titles that you have had within, I will say maybe the last 5 years. Just focus on the last 5 years of work, or whatever you have in terms of work experience, no more than 5 years. Kind of stick to that. And, kind of bullet points the responsibilities and roles. You can add additional roles that you have had previous to maybe those 5 years, but nothing more than the company and the title. You will have space in your application to fill out those professional roles a little bit more. So the resume is meant to just be a snapshot. Okay, now you don't have to include every single one of these items that I listed on the slide. They won't all apply to everybody. If you have the space, feel free to do that. If you don't have the space, stick to the basics, your education, your professional roles, bullet points on your just your kind of job descriptions. Okay, so hopefully that helps a little bit with your resume here. So question in there, how long should the resume be? It's 1 page. All right, so you see that up at the top of the slide there, just so it's a 1-page resume. All right, so do try to stick to that. All righty, moving on to recommendations. We do require 2 recommendations. There is an option to add a 3rd recommender to your application. My advice on that is, if you plan to add a 3rd recommender, this individual should add additional value or information that the first 2 recommenders cannot provide. So as an example, if you have, say, 2 professors from your undergraduate program who have offered to recommend you, your 3rd recommender should not be another professor. Okay, it should be someone outside of academia, because typically someone in a similar role as another recommender is going to speak to the same qualities that you have. So one professor is going to talk about your qualities as a student and your behavior in the classroom, just like the other faculty member will speak to. So we want recommenders who can speak to different qualities that you have, different aspects of who you are, different skills that you have. So we do require that one of your recommenders be an academic reference. If you are a current undergraduate student, or if you are very recently graduated from undergrad, I would say if you're more than 2 years out of undergrad, it will be hard to find faculty who remember you enough to write a great recommendation. And so in that case, you're welcome to provide 2 professional references. But if you are in an undergraduate program, or you are just recently graduated within 2 years, you do need to have 1 academic reference. Okay. The other reference can be, if you're currently a student, you can have 2 academic references. That's fine, as long as they can speak to different qualities and skills that you have. You can have a professional reference. If you've had an internship or a part-time job, or maybe you've been a teaching assistant or a research assistant, you can have a supervisor for those roles write a recommendation for you as well. Okay. You can also choose an organization leader. If you've done community service, like I mentioned previously, someone who has supervised you in that community service can also write a recommendation. If you are a student athlete, a coach is a wonderful recommender for you. They can speak to your teamwork skills. They can speak to your leadership if you have been a team captain. They can speak to your time management skills as well. So all of these options are great. Okay. And I do my best advice here is I recommend a variety of recommenders. So your two required, wherever possible, should maybe be two different types of recommenders. And of course, that third one, as I mentioned before, the third one should add new value, new information that the other two could not provide if you do add that optional third. We are not looking for specifically for someone to add the optional third recommender, okay? So know that it truly is optional. And there are not going to be any points lost if you don't add the third recommendation. It doesn't work that way. So don't feel obligated there, but know that that is a resource for you if you have additional information you want to showcase. Okay. All right, moving on. And again, please feel free to add questions in the Q&A section. If anything comes up, I try to answer as we go along, but of course, we'll circle back at the end as well. So next item up is the transcripts. We do require transcripts from every institution that you have attended. Okay, so even if you started at one institution and you transferred to another institution, of course, your grades from the first institution will be transferred to the second institution and they will be included on your transcript, but we do need an original transcript from that original institution as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. There often with that transfer process, we don't always see on a transcript what the exact class was that you took at your first institution, and we almost never see a grade for those transfer courses. We usually just see maybe a department and a credit, okay? And so that's not really helpful for us, especially as we're looking at sort of your grade trends in undergrad, and as we're looking for prerequisite courses completed and so on. So that's why we're asking for transcripts for every institution that you attended. This does include maybe a summer immersion program that you've taken at an institution. What it does not include, if you took AP classes and you received, or not AP, but if you took sort of like dual credit classes in high school and you received college credit through a dual credit course, you don't need to include that institution. So anything in the high school years, we don't need to see, we don't need to look at. So that it's really any institution you attended after high school, okay? And I'm saying this, doing you a favor, because I've seen many times where applicants have struggled to get a transcript from an institution that they listed as a dual credit institution. Okay, so it's harder to get those transcripts sometimes. And we only need to see post high school and beyond. So don't worry about listing dual credit institutions. All right. If you are an international student and your education was not taught in English, your transcript will not be originally in English. And so we do want to make sure that your transcripts that you submit are all translated into English. Okay. Again, if you are an international student, we do not require a WES evaluation on your transcript for the application process. That is something that we will ask you to submit later on if you are admitted to the program and you are going through the onboarding process. Then we will ask for a WES evaluation, okay? But that's not something you need to do right now. You'll only need to provide that if admitted, okay? Now, my best bit of advice here is transcripts at this stage of the process can be unofficial. So if you can log in to a student portal and get access to your unofficial transcript, you can save that as a PDF and upload that to your application. Or you can take a screenshot. Or if you have a paper copy that you received from your institution when you graduated, you can scan that and add that to your application. So any transcript that is coming from you to us is considered unofficial. We will accept official transcripts. Those can take a little bit of time, okay? And that can delay the admissions process for you. That's why we accept the unofficial copies at this stage, all right? If you are admitted and you choose to enroll in the MSBA program, we will ask you to supply an official transcript. And that will only count if it's coming directly from your institution to us, either digitally or by postal mail. Okay, so something to consider, but you don't have to do that right now. That does slow things down. We can go unofficial at this stage. We'll get the official copy later. All right, so I do see some questions that came in. So let's see here. Okay, so going back to the resume. So Brian's asking about kind of rule of thumb on the number of bullet points under each job experience. You know, honestly, Brian, I don't feel like there's a rule of thumb. I think it's just, you know, you can use as many as you need to just explain your basic job skills. Okay. You know, if it's getting to be a pretty long list, and you're running out of space, maybe see how you can consolidate some of those or make them a little bit more concise there. I don't want to limit anyone, because I know some jobs don't require as many bullet points and some do. So just keep them concise and consolidate wherever possible. Okay. Hopefully that helps a little bit here. So Arthur's got a great question for international students. Is a WES evaluation accepted as a record? Yes, absolutely. If you want to submit a WES evaluated transcript as your transcript, it does have to come officially from WES, but we can consider that your transcript. But we would like to see a copy of the original, but that can be unofficial, but we can count WES as that official copy. Okay. All right. Jalen's asking, are high school transcripts needed? No high school transcripts necessary, only post high school. So college, university, or higher. Okay, and I know that the language is different in different parts of the world. So post-secondary is what we're talking about here. So university, I know that in some countries, college is high school. So what I mean is university, post-secondary transcripts, that's what we need. No high school needed. Okay. All right, good question here. What is a WES evaluation? So a WES evaluation is essentially, it is an evaluation of an international transcript that translates it officially to a US grading scale. Okay, so it helps us because there are different grading scales all over the world. We tend to work on a 4.0 scale here in the US. Other countries work on a 10-point scale, 7-point scale, 6 points, 100 points. And so it's much harder to assess a transcript and kind of compare those, to kind of compare applicants and GPAs and all of that, when the grading scales are so different. So a WES evaluation is just a way to kind of get everyone on that same kind of level playing field with the GPA and the grading scale. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let's see here. So Kumail's asking a question here. Kumail, can you maybe in the chat, Kumail, can you explain what you mean by ATS friendly? Okay, so I'm not sure what you mean by that. You can, so your resume or CV, I hesitate to call it a CV because CVs tend to be much longer than a resume. And so but you can do your resume in any format you want. We don't have a specific guideline for that. I see that the chat just came through. So, oh, no. Okay, I know what you mean by that now. Okay, no, it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be like ATS friendly, anything like that. We don't do that as part of the application process, Camille. So you can have it in any format, any software, just try to keep it to one page, okay? All right, so how do you do a WES evaluation? So there is, let me, I'm trying to get to another screen here because I want to find a URL for you. And then I'm going to share the URL in the chat so that we can, whoops, I lost it. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, guys. Bear with me here while I am trying to find a tab to open. Okay. Let's do a new window here. Okay. Give me 1 second. I am looking for the WES website. There we go. So World Education Services. All right. I am typing in the chat for everybody. Anyone who is, whoops, maybe not. Anyone who is international and is curious about the WES evaluation. Okay. I'm not sure why I did that. I apologize for the delay here. Okay, chat, there we go. So World Education Service, and you can just kind of follow the prompts there to get a transcript evaluation. But again, this is not required right now. That is only required if you are admitted to the program and if you choose to enroll. Okay, so let's see here. I am trying to get back to this. Okay. Whoops. Where am I? Okay. I'm going to do a quick check here because I have had so many different screen switches. Can you all still see my slides? Can you see my transcript slides? Someone just raise your hand if you can see. Okay, good. Very good. Thank you, guys. All right, I appreciate that. All right, and I saw in the chat there if you about a waiver code. So Ewan, I did see that question, and I do have a waiver code for you all in one of my last slides. So I'm going to go back here to the questions. And let's see here. Ajay had a question here about 15 years of education. So I'm assuming what you mean by that, Ajay, is a 3-year bachelor's degree sufficient? Yes. So if anyone on the line has a 3-year bachelor's degree, very common in India, very used to that. And of course, we do accept that. You don't have to do the post-grad, or post-grad program or diploma or certificate, anything like that. The 3-year bachelor's degree is very sufficient. Okay. All right. All right, so another question here. I usually don't get this many questions about transcripts. All right, so for the original transcripts, can I upload my international records in the original language alongside the WES evaluation? No, if you are going to upload the original transcript, even if it's just an unofficial copy, even if you have a WES evaluation along with it, we still need to see it translated in English. Okay, any international transcript must be translated into English. Karina's got a great question going back to recommendations. Do the letters of recommendation need to be sent before the deadline, or is a slight delay okay? They absolutely can come in after the deadline. All right. So that we understand you don't have any control over that. I would just recommend that for your recommenders, as you're asking them to recommend you, that you indicate what the deadline is and ask them to try to stick to that as best as possible. Any items that, and I believe I touch on this in a later slide, but any of these items that we talk about, my best advice is try to get everything submitted within 10 days of the deadline, 10 days post deadline. That will keep you on track for the rest of that admission process, that timeline that I showed you in that first slide. That'll keep you moving along on that timeline, so there shouldn't be a delay in your decision, okay? But things can come in after the deadline. So yes, this question here, is the WES evaluation compulsory for international students during onboarding? Yes. So again, I'll repeat, if you are an international applicant, you have been admitted to the program and you choose to enroll, then a WES evaluation will be required of you during the onboarding process. Okay. All right, so let's move on. We're going to move on from transcripts here. So, oh, except I just saw another one pop in. Okay, that one, I'm gonna save that one for the next round. Okay. So I want to keep moving on here. Okay, so prerequisites. So this is, sorry about that, I'm keep switching back and forth here. So prerequisites. So the MSBA program does require that all applicants have completed 3 prerequisite courses, 1 statistics class and 2 business classes. Those business classes can be under the umbrellas of accounting, finance, management, or marketing. They can also be most economics courses as well. Now, your prerequisites can either be completed through your undergraduate program. Most of our applicants will have completed all prerequisites through undergrad, okay, and those will appear on their transcript. Some applicants have not had the opportunity to take business classes in their undergraduate program, and so they need to meet those prerequisites outside of the undergraduate degree, or statistics could be, most often it's the business classes that are missing. And in that case, you are welcome to take online courses. Those can be certificate courses from online platforms such as Coursera, Udemy, edX, LinkedIn Learning, DataCamp, any sort of online platform that provides courses from an accredited institution and will provide you a completion certificate. And we will need the completion certificate. Now, my best advice here, your prerequisites can be completed during the admission process. They can be completed even after you are admitted. Let's say you are a candidate who has not completed a prerequisite. If the rest of your application profile is strong and the admissions committee decides to admit you to the MSBA program, if you are missing a prerequisite, that admission offer that you receive would be a contingent offer. And we're saying you are admitted, but you do have to complete the prerequisite by a specific deadline. Okay, usually it's July 1st, right before the program starts. So you will have some time to complete those prerequisites. So I don't want everyone on the line right now to scramble and feel like, okay, I don't have all of these classes. I need to finish them now before I can submit my application. Not true at all. You can certainly submit your application even if you have not completed all of the prerequisites, okay? Even if you have any additional questions about that as you're working through your application, I'm happy to talk with you offline about that and guide you through that process of how to submit the application without those prerequisites, okay? It's very easy, and I don't want you to be too concerned about this. This is something that you have some time to work on, okay? The reason that we have these prerequisites, statistics is a great sort of lead in to the technical skills that you will learn, coding, programming in the program. So it's good preparation for that. The business courses, of course, give you a wonderful business lens through which you will learn the analytics tools. So all of those necessary to have the most well-rounded picture within the MSBA program as you're learning. Okay. All righty, let's move on. GMAT, GRE scores. So a score is required of applicants. Either one of these exams is accepted. There's not one that's more preferred than another. So you decide which exam works best for you. GMAT is typically great for someone with a quantitative background or a technical background, and GRE is great for someone who has more of a social science background. But I do recommend taking practice exams online and determining which format feels more comfortable for you, okay? These scores can be submitted after the deadline, but again, I recommend that sort of 10-day window post deadline. So if you have yet to sign up for the GMAT or GRE, but you're hoping to apply soon, I would say sign up now. Make sure that test date is fairly close to the deadline so that you can get those scores turned in pretty soon after the deadline. I will say again, just like the transcript, GMAT, GRE scores, we do accept unofficial copies of the score report for the application process. We will ask for an official copy to be sent from the testing agency during the onboarding process if you are admitted and you choose to enroll. Okay, so if you have yet to take the GMAT or GRE and you're wanting to submit the application by the deadline, you can include a future test date in your application. Okay, we do have some waiver options available. If you have had a 3.5 GPA or higher on a 4-point scale, then you can request an automatic waiver of the GMAT. You can also submit through the application. On the test score page of the application, there is a waiver request that you can submit. That is useful if you have other circumstances that might prevent you from taking the GMAT. It could be a time issue, it could be a cost issue, it could be access issue. And so feel free to share that with us, that is a waiver request. So the 3.5 GPA threshold is an automatic waiver. The waiver request through the application is a request, and it will be reviewed. It can be approved, it can be denied as well. So know that when you're submitting a request for anything outside of that 3.5 GPA threshold, there's still a chance that you could potentially have to submit a GMAT or GRE. We typically will look at these standardized tests as a way to observe your quantitative skill. Okay, so when a waiver is approved, it's usually because there are other pieces of your application that will demonstrate your quantitative ability. Okay, and so it could be through your academic record, your classes in undergrad or graduate school. It could be through the work experience that you've had and the tools that you use in your professional life that will demonstrate your quantitative ability. So there are other areas where we can assess quantitative level, and that's what we'll be looking for if a waiver request is submitted. Okay, so I'm seeing some questions come in, and I'm seeing some chat in there as well. Okay, so, and again, I'm going to remind you, if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A function instead of chat, so it's a little bit easier for me to make sure that I've got everything. Let's see here. All right, so Lechen, we have our economics courses. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Our economics courses though as business classes. We consider, okay, so economics classes are typically not listed under business, but they are very similar and often have a lot of similar information that is taught, similar content. And so we do consider most economics classes as business prerequisites, okay? If there are questions, you can submit your transcript to me and I can let you know if those economics courses will suffice, okay? Let's see here, as a GMAT or GRE score mandatory, yeah, it is required. It is a required piece of the application, and there are some opportunities for a waiver, as I just mentioned. Okay, so that 3.5 GPA, if on a 4-point scale, or you can submit a waiver request, but that's not guaranteed. Okay, but outside of the waiver, it is a required part of the application. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, so Katrina's got a question about so how often do applicants waive it? That changes with every application round. You know, we have some application rounds where almost everybody submits a GMAT, and we have some where more are requesting a waiver. It just varies. Okay. And you know, how often do we look at that? Well, if there is a GMAT score, we look at it. Okay. It is, like I said, it's a piece that will help us to assess your quantitative ability. And that's an important piece. It's an important qualification that tells us you are going to do well in this program. Quantability is important. And so if you have a GMAT score or GRE, we will definitely look at that. Okay. Okay. All right. So Kumail, you had a question in here about international students requesting a GMAT waiver if your GPA is not on that 4-point scale, and if we don't have you know, a WES evaluation initially. So that can kind of go a couple of ways. One, I have a lot of experience with transcripts from around the world, and we have a pretty good sense of sort of that kind of how those GPAs translate into a 4-point scale. And so it's fairly easy for us to kind of tell if it's going to be a 3.5 or higher. You can also submit your WES evaluation, even if it's just an unofficial WES evaluation, you can submit that. If you are really looking for that waiver, then I would say it might be better to do the WES evaluation early on, and that can help with gaining that waiver. Okay. Let's see here. Another good question, would a GRE waiver weaken a candidate's position for scholarship? No, it won't. It can certainly help your scholarship position, but it will not put you in a weaker position. It will not put you at a lower level for scholarship, because there are a lot of different things that we consider with a scholarship beyond the GRE and GMAT. We look at GPA, we look at work experience, we look at internships and recommendations and essays and interviews. All of those are going to be factored into your scholarship awarding. So it's just one small piece of that. So if you don't have a GMAT or a GRE score, you're not going to be dinged on the scholarship. Okay. All right. I see tons of questions coming in here. I am going to move on. I want to keep us on track here, but I will do my best to get to all of these questions. Okay. More tests, TOEFL and IELTS for our international applicants. Both exams are accepted. Either one is fine. We don't have a preference. Again, just like the GMAT or GRE, these scores can be submitted after the deadline. But again, I do recommend that you stay within that 10-day window post deadline to keep yourself on track with the admission review timeline. And again, just like GMAT, GRE, you can include a future test date in your application if you have yet to take one of these exams. And again, just like GMAT, GRE, everything's very much the same here. We will accept an unofficial score report for the application process, and we'll only ask for the official copy if you are admitted and you choose to enroll in the program. Now, we do have some waiver options here as well. 2 very specific waiver options. So if you studied in your undergraduate program in the US for a minimum of 3 academic years, you can be waived of the TOEFL or IELTS requirement. Alternately, if you studied internationally, but the medium of instruction of your undergraduate program was English, then you can also be waived of this requirement, okay? So those 2 are very specific waivers. Typically, they're automatic, especially studying in the US, that is automatic. We will see your transcript when you submit your application. If it's a US transcript, we will automatically waive this requirement. If we or if your medium of instruction was English, typically a transcript is going to include that information. If it doesn't, you will want to ask your institution to submit a short document stating that the medium of instruction was English. That will allow us to give you an automatic waiver. Okay, so short and sweet on this one. Next one, the Kira video assessment. So this piece is, I guess you can consider it sort of a pre-interview. Okay, so this is, it's maybe about a 15-minute process. Okay, so Kira Talent is the platform that we use. You will be given a link to the video assessment through Kira Talent shortly after you submit your application. Okay, all applicants are going to do this. All right, so you'll be sent that link, and you'll have my colleagues and I will be asking questions on video, and you will have a minute to answer those questions on video, and you'll be recorded. This is not live, but it is recorded, so you will have an opportunity to kind of give a mini pre-interview on video. We can see you, we can hear you. This is a great way for international applicants to better demonstrate their language skills outside of a TOEFL or IELTS. So that's something, I think that's a great benefit, but it's also a great way for you in general to showcase your personality and how you will fit into our community and how you align with our mission, just based on the kinds of questions that we ask. So again, it takes maybe 10 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes average, and you'll have a little bit of prep time before each question. I believe it's maybe 30 seconds. You have to kind of gather your thoughts before you start responding, okay? So my advice on this, treat this as a professional experience, okay? So make sure that you look presentable and professional for this video assessment because you are being recorded. The admissions committee is going to see your responses. And conduct yourself professionally. Your language should be professional. So treat it as if it were a real interview, okay? All right, we're moving on here. Essay. Okay, I want you to raise your hands if the essay is what you're most concerned about, most scared of in the application. I know there's got to be plenty out there. Okay. This can be a scary piece of the application. I will tell you though, the essay is one of our favorite pieces of the admissions application because when you take a look at the essay prompts that we provide, you'll see that the essay is a way for us to, again, get to know you more personally. It's a great way for us to learn about your story, where you're coming from, what you've been inspired by, and how you have changed because of your experiences. So it's just a great chance for you, again, to tell your story, okay? You'll have 2 essay prompts. You'll pick just one and you'll write about that. I recommend that you pick the prompt that really allows you to tell your best story, okay? Pick the prompt that you will enjoy writing about the most. That is when your writing skills will be at their best, when you are enjoying what you are writing about, okay? Advice here, make sure that you are writing in 11 to 12 font, double spaced. Margins don't matter, but kind of try to just stick to sort of standard format. Include your essay prompt at the top of your document, because sometimes it can be hard when we don't have a prompt to know which prompt is being answered. So include that prompt at the top. All right, and just know that when we are reviewing your essays, we're not reviewing it with a red pen. We're not marking it up and grading you. It's not like that. Again, we are merely reviewing it to learn more about who you are, okay? So keep that in mind. But that should not stop you, though, from spell checking and proofreading and just making sure that your writing is clear and concise and well organized, okay? Now, you do have an option for a supplemental essay, okay? So there, in the same essay page, essay section of your application, you'll see that there's an optional personal statement or supplement. You are welcome to use this. You're not required to. We are not looking for the folks who have decided to use this section. So again, no extra points if you do, no loss of points if you don't submit a supplement. It is merely there to give you a voice to share any other information that you couldn't fit anywhere else in your application, okay? I do caution you, when you are writing your essay, make sure that you are sticking to your prompt and that you're not trying to mold that essay so that you can share the information that you desperately need the admissions committee to know, okay? For example, if you struggled in your undergraduate career, maybe went through some personal things or whatever it might be, maybe you just struggled and you know we're going to see it on your transcript. The essay is not the space to share that, but the supplement is, okay? So use the supplement to share any additional information you need the admissions committee to know to have the best, most full picture of who you are as a candidate, if there is any additional information that needs to be shared, okay? I will say, try to steer clear of using that supplement to say why you want to pursue the MSBA and why the Notre Dame MSBA specifically, because you do have your statement of purpose and you'll potentially have your interview as well, which is where you'll be able to share that information, okay? So just think wisely about this supplement, anything that you feel that is necessary that the admissions committee knows to make the best decision for you, okay? All righty, so we will move on. I know there are questions in there, but I don't think anything new has come in, so we'll just keep moving on. Okay, slide presentation. So who on the line, raise your hand if you're most concerned about the slide presentation. The essay, no big deal. The slide presentation, though, that's concerning. Okay, so we got at least one there. The slide presentation is my favorite part of the application. This is where you get to depart from the very professional, stuffy business school application, and you get to just be yourself. You get to showcase your personality. You get to tell the admissions committee who you truly are and what makes you unique and special and what makes you a great match for Notre Dame, okay? The slide presentation, if you've already started your application, you've already kind of looked at the guidelines for the slide presentation, you know that they are not very specific, right? There's a reason for that, because the slides should reflect you as a unique individual, and everybody's different. So we really can't provide a specific set of guidelines for the slide because they're all going to be different for every applicant. What we can say is you have 4 slides, okay, 4 slides to work with here. And you will save them as a PDF and you'll upload them to your application as a PDF. So these, while it is a slide presentation, you are not presenting them on video, okay? You are simply submitting them as a PDF. So all of the information that you want to share with these slides should be included in the slides, because you're not going to be able to talk through them and add additional information, okay? The slides should be brand new information. So similar to the supplement that I just talked about, the slides should be new information that you can't find anywhere else in your application, okay? So above and beyond the application. My advice, do not let your slides become a visual resume, okay? You don't need to include your education or your work experience or your extracurricular activities necessarily in your slides if all of that's on your resume, okay? We have all that information already. This, you certainly, I shouldn't have said extracurricular activities, because I think a lot of folks really like to talk about their activities. The slides are a great way to showcase you know, what has really made you in your life. So it could be the people that mean the most to you in your life. It could be the experiences. Maybe it's travel, or I mean, it could be like a major kind of life-altering experience you've gone through. You can talk about things like your favorite activities and hobbies. You can talk about your pets. You can talk about your favorite movies, music, books, anything like that, but really talk about those things in terms of what they mean to you and how they have molded you into who you are, okay? The slides themselves can look however you want. They can showcase your favorite colors or your favorite designs. They can look like your personality, okay? So have fun with this. If you are not having fun putting together your slides, then you're doing it wrong. We want you to have fun with this piece, okay? It should be a good balance of photos and text. These should not be another essay. That's not what these slides are meant to be. So don't go too heavy on the text. Bullet points are great in the slides. And the slides should include photos. You don't have to have photos of yourself if you're not comfortable with that, but they certainly can. You're welcome to share personal photos. You can share stock photos, whatever works best for you. But again, we just want you to be creative. We want you to be genuine. We want you to tell your story. And again, just showcase your personality. So have fun with this piece. Okay, not every business school application is going to give you this platform. So enjoy it and know that this really is important to us. Okay, so it's not just an extra step, but this is a very important piece to our admission review process. All righty. Interview. I promised you another slide on the interview, so here it is. All right, so again, you could be randomly invited to interview during the admission review process. Not everybody is invited to interview, but many are. It is online through Kira Talent, so the same vendor that we use for that video assessment I talked about previously. They do host our interviews, but those will be live, so not recorded. The actual interview is live. It lasts no more than 30 minutes, so short and sweet. And this, of course, should be considered a professional experience. So dress professionally, speak professionally, behave professionally. I will tell you, I get this question a lot. It is not a technical interview. Despite this being the business analytics program, it is not a technical interview. The interview is our way of being able to assess how well you will fit into our community and how you align with our mission. So the interview is more of a conversation. All right. We talk about leadership and teamwork and professional goals. And we talk about diversity. And, we talk about just things that make you uniquely you. Okay. So that's what you should expect with this piece. All righty. And interviews too, I will say before I switch slides here, interviews, we do post interview dates on our website so you can expect when the interviews will happen within your admission round. So hopefully that will help you plan a little bit better as well. All right, so fellowships. This is our fancy word for scholarship. So if you hear fellowship, just know that it does mean merit-based scholarship, okay? This is something you will see on the last page of your application, all right? So you will see this question: would you like to be considered for fellowships or scholarships? All right, answer yes. That's my best advice here. Just answer yes. This question and how you answer it has no bearing on your admission decision at all. It simply indicates to the admissions committee that during the review process, that committee needs to also review your applicant profile for scholarship awarding, okay? If you answer no, you will not receive a fellowship or scholarship offer as part of the admission review process. And to appeal that takes some time and effort. So just answer yes on this piece, okay? Around 80 to 90%, actually 85 to 90% of our applicants, admitted applicants, do receive some sort of a fellowship award currently. Okay, so something to consider. All righty, we are getting down here to the end. So my best tips and advice for your application. You can apply anytime during the admission round. You do not have to wait until the deadline date to submit your application. You can submit it anytime prior to that. And I do recommend not waiting until the very last minute on the deadline to submit your application. If you have technical issues or last minute questions, that can be stressful. And depending on the time of day, our team might not be available to help you troubleshoot. And so I don't want you to wait until the last minute and then be stressed out and worry about meeting that deadline. So give yourself a couple of days buffer at the very least so that we can troubleshoot any issues that you might have before that deadline passes, okay? Other tip, the decisions for your application round are released on the posted date. Okay, so if you need to have an admission decision from us by a certain date, you'll want to plan accordingly and choose the application round that will get you the decision by your deadline, okay? Because we cannot always accommodate an earlier decision because of the volume of applications we receive and because of the extensive review process that we follow for every applicant, okay? Other advice, submit your portion of the application. So anything you can control within your application, submit that by the deadline. Anything else that's out of your control can come in after that deadline within that 10-day window, okay? So remember that 10-day post-deadline window. So what is considered your portion of the application? Okay, so the application form itself, your resume, your statement of purpose, your slides and your essay, and your recommender contact information, okay? Everything else, so the test scores, well, you can kind of control your test scores because you can submit the unofficial copies. So that kind of gives you a little bit more control. But if you are wanting to submit the official copies, for your application, that can take a little bit of time and is kind of out of your control. So those can come in post deadline. And your transcript, again, you can submit an unofficial copy that kind of gives the control back to you. But if you are submitting an official transcript from your institution, that can take some time as well. So those transcripts can be submitted after the deadline as well. Okay, and of course the recommendations, which are completely out of your control. And again, I said it before, but I do recommend communicating the deadline with your recommenders so that they have a time frame and sort of have an idea of when they need to submit that recommendation. But again, those can come in post deadline as well. But I can't stress enough, if you can stick to that 10-day window post deadline to submit any lingering items, that should keep you on track with the rest of the admissions process. Okay. All right. And I already mentioned the unofficial copies there, so just keep that in mind. That does speed up the process quite a bit. All right, deadlines. So here are the deadlines. So we've already passed September 13th and November 1st. So we are now on to round 2, January 10th. So you have just a little over a month to work on your application and get everything submitted. For those of you who will have a nice long holiday break in December and early January, this is an ideal deadline for you because you'll have some downtime to work on your application over Christmas and New Year holidays. So keep that in mind. You will see here that the decision release date is also listed, okay? And this is something you will find online as well, okay? So you will see these application rounds, you'll see the deadlines and the decision release dates. So if you apply by January 10th, you will hear back from us. You will know your decision by March 17th. Also posted on our website, not included in this slide just for the sake of space, but also included in the chart on our website are the interview dates as well. I mentioned that previously, that we include those interview dates, and that does help quite a bit with your planning process. So, you know, sometimes you want to look at the application deadline and the interview dates. Maybe you're not available during the round interview dates, so you might need to pick a different round. So just something else to consider as you choose when to submit your application. For all of my attendees on the line today who are international candidates, I do recommend that you submit your application by January 10th, okay? That will put you in the perfect timeline to go through the immigration process. So you'll have a decision by March 17th. We typically start working on I-20 documents for any admitted students who have confirmed their seats in early March. So that's kind of perfect timing for you. So you'll have several months to get your I-20 and then secure an interview and all of those fun things that happen with the immigration process. And you should have plenty of time to complete all of that and get your visa before you have to arrive in the first week of August, okay? If you go into the round 3 deadline, March 14th, you're not going to hear back from us until almost May. And that gives you very little time to go through the immigration process, okay? So January 10th is great for international candidates. All right. We are done with the slides. So now on to the questions. So there was a question in there previously. I think Ewan asked about the application fee waiver, and that is there on the slide. So feel free you can copy that fee waiver code down if you want to, but please know that I will be sending all of you a follow-up email tomorrow thanking you for attending the webinar today, and I do include that fee waiver code in that email as well. So if you don't have the ability to copy that down, just wait for that email to come through.